In my journey as a linguist, I've traversed the uncharted frontiers of human language. The discovery of Obscurum, a language lost in the annals of history, unfolded amidst the stalls of an antique market, where I unearthed centuries-old manuscripts buried under layers of dust, their covers worn and pages yellowed by time. Their significance lay not just in their antiquity, but in the presence of marginal notes in a language familiar to me, hinting at a partial translation of the most recurring symbols. Intrigued, I dove into these notes, managing to extract fragments of understandable text. The translation revealed that Obscurum was not just a language, but a key to something deeper and more powerful. Despite my intuition urging caution, curiosity won over. Thus, I decided to experiment with pronouncing these translated words, to capture and analyze the effect they produced on my surroundings. Holding the recorder firmly, I voiced the translated fragments aloud, stifling the sense of danger that gripped me. A part of me was acutely aware of the peril of invoking dark forces, entities, that should have remained forgotten. Yet curiosity overwhelmed caution. This act triggered an irreversible change, plunging my existence into a whirlwind of supernatural events that twisted every aspect of reality as I knew it. Upon playing back the recording, all semblance of normality was swept away, replaced by escalating terror. The walls of my apartment, once welcoming and familiar, began to warp unnaturally, as if their surfaces were made of wax exposed to relentless heat. Colors, once vivid, faded and blurred into an unprecedented visual chaos. Furniture, the silent witnesses of my everyday life, now trembled with a barely perceptible movement, almost invisible to the eye, insinuating that they were animated by their own volition. Not just the furniture, but the photographs hanging on the walls began to distort, smiles and portraits twisting into malevolent grins, heralding the horror that awaited me, as if they already knew the dreadful fate about to befall me. As the playback continued, the air became charged with an ever-stronger energy. Books on shelves opened and closed violently, their pages fluttering as if moved by an unseen presence, flipping through them in a frantic and agitated search. Lights fluctuated, shifting from blinding intensity to profound darkness in an instant, creating distorted shadows that moved spectrally. The atmosphere of the apartment was transformed, animated by a dark force evoked by the words of Obscurum, and the very foundations of physics seemed to wobble under the weight of indescribable terror. The recorded voice, which should have been my own, now sounded alien and altered, as if it passed through a filter that distorted its essence and tone. The wooden floor beneath me emitted painful creaks, almost like moans foretelling a collapse under an invisible and suffocating pressure. A piercing cold invaded the room, a chill that penetrated skin and spirit, bringing with it a fog that slithered across the floor, engulfing everything in a deadly grip. The boundary between real and unimaginable thinned with every moment, dragging me deeper into an abyss I feared I could never climb out of. From the fog rose a creature of imposing stature and unnaturally slender form, wrapped in a mantle of deathly pallor. Its skin stretched tight like parchment worn by centuries. Its eyes were bottomless abysses, voids that seemed to devour every spark of light, leaving behind only emptiness. Its mouth, a grotesque gash more than a human feature, expanded into a maw of pure darkness, a desolate void that seemed to suck in every glimmer of hope, a reflection of terror that defied all understanding. with jerky, disjointed movements. As if drawn from a disturbed sequence, the creature advanced. "You have crossed into my realm," echoed a voice, a timbre that seemed to spread from every direction, yet without a clear origin, invading thought rather than hearing. "Your soul now belongs to me." A sharp anguish pierced my heart, turning panic into something more acute and profound. Any hope of escape tore apart like a fragile veil, leaving me only with the raw awareness of imminent danger. Yet within me burned a flame of rebellion. I could not, would not succumb to such a fate, a one-way journey to certain death. Driven by an unstoppable need to survive, I clutched the recorder with spasmodic strength. Its reassuring weight was a desperate link to reality, while the frenetic beating of my heart hammered my chest like a war drum. The terror that clenched me was nothing compared to my will not to be forgotten. I could not vanish into oblivion without leaving a trace of my existence, of my struggle against the horror that besieged me. My escape was desperate. And in this chaos, every door I opened catapulted me into even darker and more twisted scenarios. I found myself facing an endless corridor. Its walls a tumult of living graffiti, figures that danced and shifted shape under my incredulous eyes. And then, almost as an illusory refuge, an empty room opened before me. At its center, a dark silhouette, its head bowed, scrutinizing the void before it. But as soon as it sensed my presence, its face abruptly lifted, revealing a grin so sinister it rooted me to the spot. It wasn't just its gaze that instilled terror, but the revelation that this aberrant entity was a grotesque and frightening reflection of myself. The chill of realizing that thing, more beast than human, made my legs wobble, rendering me incapable of even the slightest movement. And as if this wasn't enough to torment my already tried spirit, my malevolent alter ego began to move toward me with uncertain and fragmented steps, repeating the same disturbing dynamics of the creature that had previously emerged from the fog. With increasingly rapid and disjointed movements, it stood before me. I felt my mind crumble under the weight of unbearable horror. It was so close that its deformed face almost touched mine, its eyes burning with a hellish fire from which I could glimpse the flames of hell itself. The fog and a deadly cold invaded the environment. Its mouth, a dark wound in the fabric of reality, opened monstrously. Its opening defied every conception of normality, widening beyond human limits, a chasm that seemed never-ending, ready to swallow even the purest light. "You were never alone." A chilling hiss escaped its lips, sealing my fate with a disturbing promise of suffering. "I have always watched you, waiting for the right moment to claim you. And now that moment has arrived." The creature lunged toward me with a lightning-fast movement, passing through me as if my body were no longer made of matter, then vanished into nothingness. My heart stopped for a moment. Time stood still, leaving me suspended in a limbo of fear and realization. I was alone, trapped forever in that parallel reality, a universe distorted by that cursed language. The recorder, still clutched in my hand, was the only link to the world I had left behind. A world that now seemed farther away than ever. As the creature dissolved, a wave of fear washed over me from head to toe, marking the definitive transition from the world I knew to this new, unsettling existence. The absurdity of my situation crept into my mind, a mix of disbelief and forced acceptance of my tragic fate. It was as if I had crossed an invisible threshold, beyond which there was no return. Dragged into a vortex of consequences born from my own thirst for knowledge. In this new dimension, I learned that knowledge can be both a blessing and a curse. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again, and the horrors they let in are so devastating that they warp every conception of reality. My curiosity led me into an endless nightmare, an eternal imprisonment in a place where time and space lose all meaning. This macabre recording is a cruel testament, left as a warning for anyone who might stumble upon the same dark truths that have condemned me. The hope that the recorder might be listened to in the real world is the only ray of light in this surreal and suffocating universe. A chance that my story of despair and terror might serve as a caution. If you find this tape, please heed the voice of someone who has seen what lies beyond the veil of our reality. Do not make the same mistakes I did. Do not seek to unveil the mysteries that should remain hidden, and I beseech you, never utter, for any reason in the world, the words of Obscurum.